The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast and heavy with silence. It stretched so wide that a single word spoken could echo for seconds before fading into the cold steel walls. 1,000 lights glowed across the ceiling, designed to look like the stars themselves, but none of their shine could ease the tension in the air. The leaders of many civilizations were gathered, and every one of them felt something unspoken pressing down on their minds. At the very center of the chamber stood the human delegate. He was calm, almost too calm, as if the storm of suspicion and whispers around him did not exist. His face was unreadable, and his posture steady. This made the silence heavier, because the council members expected fear or humility. But they saw neither. Rows upon rows of alien leaders sat on raised seats in a circle, their strange forms glowing under the blue light of the council lamps. Some had scales that shimmered like mirrors. Others had many eyes that blinked in restless patterns, and a few kept their faces hidden behind dark veils. They represented empires older than Earth, rulers of fleets that stretched across galaxies. Yet tonight, they watched one man from a small planet with unease. The council had summoned this meeting for one purpose. The galaxy wanted answers about Earth. They wanted to know the truth behind its history, a history that had been carefully sealed away. Every other world was proud to share its lineage, to tell stories of wars, victories, and bloodlines that stretched back millennia. But Earth had hidden something. It had offered trade, technology, and promises of peace, yet had never spoken its true name, never revealed what ancient records called it, the head speaker of the council. A tall alien with skin like hammered silver finally rose. His voice echoed across the chamber in a tone meant to break silence, but not invite comfort. "Human delegate," he said slowly, "your world has joined the stars. You sit among us, but you sit in shadow. For too long, we have heard whispers of your hidden name. We demand to know it. Tonight, the council must decide if Earth is a friend or a threat." A murmur spread across the chamber, a ripple of unease. Some voices were sharp, others almost fearful. One alien with 4 arms hissed, "We should not wait. No world hides its name without reason. Names carry history. Names carry power." Another, with eyes that glowed like fire, struck the table before him. "Yes, too many rumors. Some say Earth is older than it claims. Some say Earth devoured empires. Lies, perhaps. But lies must be burned away." The human did not speak. He let their words fill the hall like smoke, and only when the echoes quieted did he raise his head. His calm eyes moved across them one by one, unhurried. His silence was more dangerous than any argument. The council shifted uneasily. Even those who had spoken bravely now looked at him with suspicion. The silver-skinned speaker frowned. "Your silence tells us little. The council does not wait for the will of one planet. We have awakened the archive. The name will be revealed tonight." At those words, a wave of cold ran through the chamber. The archive was the oldest record of civilizations, a machine said to remember every war, every fall, every empire erased from the stars. It carried knowledge no empire wished to hear spoken aloud. To awaken the archive meant dragging ghosts into the present. The walls of the chamber opened with a slow, grinding sound. From the shadows rose a great sphere of light, suspended by invisible force. It pulsed like a living heart, and its voice was deep and metallic when it spoke. "Awakened. Access granted. What knowledge does the council demand?" The silver-skinned speaker lifted his hands. "The world named Earth has come among us. Reveal its true name, as recorded by the fallen." The archive pulsed again. Searching. "Records found. This world has carried many names." A low hum filled the chamber as words began to echo from the machine. The council leaned forward listening, the defiant, the unbroken. "The world that devoured empires." Each title was spoken with a heavy pause. The words were like stones dropped into water, and the ripples struck the hearts of every leader present. The alien with fire in his eyes went pale. The 4-armed one's hands trembled. None laughed now. The archive's voice grew colder. "Recorded in the fall of the Catharn Dominion. Recorded in the surrender of the Valar armadas. Recorded in the silence of the Zorathi swarm, this world carries a name feared by the ancient stars. The human delegate remained still, his eyes never leaving the pulsing sphere. His face gave no reaction, as if these names were not shocking but expected. That quiet acceptance made the council fear more. The archive's light dimmed for a moment, then grew brighter, as if building to the final truth. Its true name is written in every record. The galaxy once spoke it in warning. The name is the chamber lights flickered. Some leaders gripped their chairs. The silence now was alive, pressing, waiting. The moment was unbearable, and still the human did not move. The archive's voice lowered, almost like a whisper carried through steel. Terra. The name fell like a blade. No one spoke. The stars above them in the false ceiling seemed to fade. For a long moment, the only sound was the steady hum of the archive. Then the whispers began, thin and sharp, running like cracks through the chamber. Terra. The word carried weight. It was not just a name. It was a warning. The human delegate lowered his gaze slightly, and in that silence, his calmness was more terrifying than any roar. The council had wanted to learn Earth's truth. Now they wondered if they had made a mistake by asking. The forbidden record, the chamber was still trembling from the sound of the archive's last word. Terra. The name hung heavy in the air, and every leader in the hall felt its weight pressing into their thoughts. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It was sharp, dangerous, and filled with hidden fear. No one dared speak first. The human delegate remained as still as stone, his calm face reflecting the glow of the archive. The alien rulers shifted in their seats, their pride fighting against a new emotion they hated to admit: uncertainty. Finally, the silver-skinned speaker broke the silence. His voice was quieter now, but still carried authority. The archive speaks only truth. We have heard Earth's name, but a name alone is not enough. We must see the records. We must know why this world is called the Defiant and the Devourer of Empires. The chamber stirred again. Some agreed, nodding with sharp movements, while others whispered anxiously to their advisors. One of the council members, a tall creature with skin like crystal shards, leaned forward. His voice was deep and heavy. Yes, a name is a mask. We must see what lies behind it. We must open the forbidden record. At those words, the entire chamber seemed to darken. Even the lights above dimmed as if reacting to the phrase. The forbidden record was not a simple archive. It was a sealed collection of histories so violent, so destructive, that most civilizations had locked them away, fearing the knowledge could spread chaos. To unseal such records was to invite old nightmares back into the present. The archive pulsed, its glow turning red for the first time. Warning. Accessing the forbidden record is dangerous. Histories of Terra contain events that broke entire civilizations. Proceed with caution. The silver-skinned speaker raised his hand. Proceed. The sphere of light shifted, releasing streams of glowing lines that floated in the air like rivers of fire. They twisted and merged, forming images that hovered above the chamber. The first vision was of a battlefield. Countless alien warships burned in the void, their hulls shattered, their crews lost. In the center of the destruction, smaller human ships moved with relentless precision. They did not look stronger. They did not look more advanced. Yet they kept fighting, striking again and again, until larger fleets collapsed under their persistence. The archive's voice rumbled. First record. The Cathan Dominion. A fleet that ruled 500 systems. They sought to conquer Terra. They underestimated resistance. Their fleets burned. Their dominion fell. Survivors fled. They never returned. Gasps spread across the chamber. Many leaders shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting to the human delegate. But he did not move. He stood like a shadow among the light. The archive's glow shifted again. A second vision formed. Alien armies marched across Earth itself, their machines towering like gods of war. Yet humans fought with fire, steel, and sheer will. They dragged down war machines with ropes, turned shattered cities into fortresses, and refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. Second record, the archive intoned. The Velar armadas, They came with endless legions. They fought for centuries. They expected Terra to bow. Instead, Terra buried them. Armadas broken. Baylor Empire dissolved. One alien with wings like knives hissed in disbelief. Impossible. No single world could break an empire of that size. The human delegate finally turned his head, his voice low but steady. And yet it happened. The chamber grew colder. The archive pulsed again. Third record. The Zorathi swarm, endless, consuming, merciless. They devoured whole worlds. When they reached Terra, they believed no resistance could survive. The vision showed waves of monstrous creatures falling upon human cities. The swarm was endless, shadows across the sky. But then fire erupted. Humans unleashed weapons that scorched the land itself, burning their own soil just to stop the swarm. They poisoned oceans, collapsed mountains, and still they fought on. The swarm broke itself against a world that refused to fall. The archive's voice deepened. The Zorathi swarm is no more. Terra remains. The visions faded, but the silence remained. The council members shifted uneasily, their pride cracking under the weight of the images. They had expected stories, perhaps exaggerations. Instead, they had seen death, war, and a world that endured horrors no species should survive. One of the alien rulers, his body covered in glowing tendrils, whispered, "This world does not fight for victory. It fights to exist. That is why it cannot be broken." Another leader, her face hidden behind a veil of smoke, asked the question that none wanted to voice. If Terra endured such enemies in the past, what will it do to us if we stand against it? No one answered. Not even the silver-skinned speaker. The human delegate finally spoke, his voice calm but heavy with warning. "You asked for truth. You have seen it. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Do not mistake our silence for fear. We hid our name because the galaxy is not ready for it. But you insisted." He paused, letting his words sink in. His eyes, calm yet unyielding, moved slowly across the chamber. "Now you know why Terra has always been feared." The chamber fell into silence again, deeper than before. The forbidden record had spoken, and the council, for all its power, had no answer. The name revealed, the forbidden record had ended, but its visions lingered in the minds of every ruler inside the council chamber. Some clutched their chairs with trembling hands, while others turned their faces away, as if the very images might burn them. The silence that followed was suffocating, like a heavy chain across every throat. The archive pulsed again, steady and alive, as if it had not yet finished its work. Its deep voice filled the chamber with a sound that seemed to echo not only through walls, but through the bones of those who listened. Final record. The true identity of Terra. A ripple of unease spread across the circle of alien leaders. The word Terra already carried weight, already filled their minds with stories of broken empires and endless resistance. Yet the archive spoke as if what they had heard was not the whole truth. Something darker remained. The silver-skinned speaker rose once more, though his voice no longer carried the proud strength it had before. It wavered slightly. "Proceed, archive. Reveal what has been hidden." The sphere glowed brighter, streams of light circling it like the arms of a star. The chamber darkened as though the machine was drawing light into itself. Then it spoke, its voice low, slow, and final. "Terra is not only a name. It is a warning carried through the ages. Every empire that faced it carved the same word into their records before they fell. They named Terra the Endless Grave. For every empire that rose against it, Terra became the tomb where they died." The words struck like thunder. A chill spread through the chamber, and several leaders recoiled in their seats. Some whispered, some gasped, but most sat frozen. The Endless Grave, a world that did not just survive. A world that consumed its enemies and buried them forever. The visions returned, sharper this time. Countless alien banners once flown with pride, now trampled in mud. Shattered fleets drifting silent in the black void. Voices of surrender carved into history. And through it all, one planet remained, scarred but unbroken. The archive's glow dimmed at last, and silence returned. But now the silence was alive with terror. The council members no longer looked at the human delegate with suspicion. They looked at him with fear. The delegate finally moved, raising his head so his eyes swept across the chamber. His gaze was calm, steady, but it cut deeper than any blade. When he spoke, his voice carried no anger and no pride. It was cold and measured. You wished to know the truth. You demanded the record be opened. Now you have seen what our world has endured, and what it has done to those who thought to break it. His words hung heavy, and the alien leaders did not interrupt. None dared to. We did not hide our name to deceive you, he continued. We hid it because your galaxy feeds on fear. You take weaker worlds and bend them until they break, but Terra has never broken. If we had given you the name too soon, you would have seen us only as a threat. We chose patience, but you demanded answers. His voice grew colder. Now you cannot unhear what you have heard. Across the chamber, panic began to whisper louder. One ruler, with eyes like molten glass, stood and shouted, "This is a trick, a false record. No world can endure what Terra claims." The archive pulsed once more, its deep voice booming. Records confirmed, cross-verified by fallen empires. Terra's history cannot be erased. The molten-eyed ruler sat back down, his body trembling despite his anger. Another leader, with scales of emerald green, leaned forward and spoke with a fearful hiss. If Terra is the endless grave, then we are standing in the presence of death itself. We should strike now before it rises again. The chamber erupted. Some shouted for war, others for peace. Some demanded sanctions, while others whispered of alliances. The voices clashed like storms, but none rose above the calm presence of the human delegate. At last, the silver-skinned speaker raised his hand for silence. His face, once proud and certain, now looked pale under the lights. "Human delegate," he said slowly, "we cannot deny the weight of what we have seen. Terra is not a name easily spoken. Tell us this, what does your people seek? Conquest, revenge, or do you only wish to sit among us in peace?" Every eye turned to the human. His answer would decide the fate of the galaxy. The delegate's lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile, but his eyes remained hard. He spoke softly, yet his words reached every corner of the chamber. "Terra does not seek war, but we do not fear it. We do not seek conquest, but we will never kneel. We have carried the weight of being the endless grave for ages. We do not ask for your fear. We ask only for your respect. If you cannot give it, then you already know the cost." The chamber fell silent again, this time deeper than ever. No one dared to speak. The words of the human echoed in their minds, mixing with the visions the archive had shown. Respect or the grave, and as the human's calm gaze lingered on them, the rulers of the galaxy realized they had already made their choice the moment they demanded Earth's true name. The council trembles. The human delegate's last words drifted into silence. But the silence did not last. The council chamber erupted like a storm. Voices rose from every corner, sharp and clashing, filling the vast hall with fear, anger, and confusion. "They must be stopped now," shouted the emerald-scaled ruler, his long tail striking the floor. "If Terra is truly the endless grave, then to wait is to invite our destruction." Another, cloaked in smoke, hissed back in reply. "Fool, you heard the records. Armadas have already tried. Swarms have already tried. If Terra has defeated empires greater than ours, then striking them now would mean suicide." The air filled with shouting. Wings beat, claws struck tables, tendrils writhed in frustration. Some demanded weapons, some demanded alliances, some even whispered of surrender before a war could begin. The proud chamber of the Galactic Council no longer looked like a place of order. It looked like a nest of panicked creatures trapped in the dark. Through it all, the human delegate stood unmoving, his hands resting calmly behind his back. His silence was louder than all their noise. The council members argued, but each one of them kept glancing back at him, as though waiting for him to move, to speak, to give some sign of what Terra intended. The silver-skinned speaker slammed his hand against the central table, sending a deep sound across the chamber. Slowly, the chaos quieted. His face was pale, but his eyes tried to burn with authority. "Order!" he commanded. "We will not tear this chamber apart with panic. We must think clearly. Terra stands before us. We must decide its fate, or it will decide ours." The molten-eyed ruler leaned forward, his voice shaking with rage and fear. "There is no choice. If we do not act, Terra will rise and crush us as it has crushed others. We must strike first with everything we have." A ripple of agreement spread, but then the veiled leader with the smoke-like face spoke in a low, sharp voice. "And what if the archive speaks true? What if every fleet we send burns as those before it? What if Terra is not only dangerous, but inevitable?" The council trembled again, the weight of those words pressing down. Inevitable. The word cut deep, sharper than any blade. The human delegate finally broke his silence. His voice was calm, almost soft, but it carried across the chamber with the weight of iron. "You speak of fear. You speak of war. Yet you forget one thing." Every eye turned to him, waiting. The delegate's gaze was steady, his words measured. "Terra has never come for you. Terra has never sought your worlds. You come to us. You judge us. You demand our secrets. And now that you know them, you tremble. Ask yourselves this. Why do you fear a world that has not raised its hand against you?" The question struck the chamber like a hammer. For a moment, the voices died again. The alien rulers looked at one another, their faces twisted with doubt. The four-armed leader, his body shaking, muttered, "Because a predator does not need to strike to be feared." Its silence is enough. The human's expression did not change. He let the words linger, let them settle into the minds of the council. The archive pulsed faintly, its glow dimmer now, but its voice still heavy. "Terra is not a predator. Terra is a survivor. Empires fell because they believed survival was weakness. They were wrong." The chamber grew restless again. Some leaned forward, desperate to argue, but none could form the words. They had seen the records. They had heard the truths. And now they faced the calm silence of a representative who did not beg, did not threaten, and did not flinch. The silver-skinned speaker lowered his head, his voice quieter, almost weary. "We stand at a choice, to unite against Terra or to accept Terra among us. Both paths carry danger." The molten-eyed ruler roared, his voice breaking the quiet. "There is no acceptance. Terra's very existence is a danger. We should strike now, or we will regret it for the rest of time." But then another voice, softer, steadier, rose from the shadowed seats. It belonged to an ancient leader, her body frail, her eyes dim with age. She had spoken little through the session, but now her words carried weight. "You fear Terra because you see yourselves in it," she said. "Your empires rose with conquest. Your power rests on chains and ashes, but Terra's power is different. It is born of scars. You fear it because you know scars cannot be erased, and wounds cannot be broken twice." Her words left the chamber still again. The rulers shifted uncomfortably, many unable to meet her gaze. The truth of it struck deep. They were not afraid of Terra's weapons or ships. They were afraid of what Terra represented, a will that could not be bent. The human delegate bowed his head slightly toward the ancient leader, but spoke no words. The silver-skinned speaker finally turned back to the human. His voice cracked as he asked the question every leader now feared to speak. "If the galaxy raises its fleets against Terra again, if we choose war, what will your world do?" The human lifted his head, his eyes sharp as steel. His voice was quiet, but each word struck like thunder. "Then the galaxy will learn again why Terra is called the Endless Grave." The chamber shook with silence. Some rulers bowed their heads, others clenched their fists, but all of them knew the truth. They had demanded Terra's name, and now they were drowning in the weight of it. For the first time in living memory, the council trembled. The final silence, the words of the human delegate still echoed in the chamber. The endless grave. They had demanded truth, and they had received it in full. Now the rulers of the galaxy sat in silence, caught between their pride and their fear. The silver-skinned speaker lowered himself back into his seat. For the first time since the meeting began, His face showed cracks of doubt. His shining eyes moved across the circle of leaders, and what he saw in their faces unsettled him further. They were broken. The proud voices of empires older than Earth now trembled like children, hearing the approach of a storm. The archive's glow pulsed faintly, its voice lower than before, as though the machine itself carried the weight of the Council's fear. The records have been spoken. The truth cannot be erased. The decision belongs to you, but no decision came. The chamber, once filled with arguments and shouts, now held only whispers that never grew into words. Some rulers leaned toward war, others toward peace, but none dared to speak first. They knew that whichever choice was spoken would shape the future of every star. The human delegate stood quietly, waiting. His patience was a weapon sharper than any blade. He did not argue, did not threaten, did not move. His stillness forced them to confront their own fear. At last, the molten-eyed ruler broke the silence with a roar. His body shook with fury, but his voice betrayed the fear underneath. "We cannot allow this world to stand among us. If Terra remains, no empire will sleep in peace. I call for war. Totalva!" His voice echoed across the chamber, but it did not ignite the fire he expected. Instead, the silence returned heavier than before. The other rulers looked at him, but no one joined his cry. They remembered the forbidden record. They remembered fleets burned, swarms broken, dominions erased. They remembered that Terra had survived everything thrown at it. The emerald-scaled leader hissed, his voice sharp but unsteady. "You call for war, but will you lead the first fleet? Will you send your people first into the grave?" The molten-eyed ruler froze, his anger twisting into quiet shame. His eyes fell to the floor, and he did not answer. The ancient leader, frail and shadowed by age, spoke again. Her voice was soft, but it carried further than all the shouting. "This chamber has never feared a single world, yet tonight we tremble. That is the truth we cannot escape. If we choose war, we choose our own death. If we choose peace, we may yet see a different path." The smoke-veiled leader added, her tone sharp and cold, "Peace does not mean trust. Peace does not mean safety, but it means survival. And that is more than war will give us." The silver-skinned speaker closed his eyes, his hand pressing against the table as though its weight were the only thing holding him upright. At last he spoke. "The Council will not vote for war tonight. We cannot. The risk is too great. Terra will stand among us. For now." The words fell heavy, and though they brought no comfort, they were accepted. Some sighed in relief, others whispered angrily, but none rose to challenge the decision. The chamber was too heavy with fear to carry another argument. The human delegate bowed his head slightly, though there was no smile on his face. His voice was calm, but every syllable struck like iron. "You chose wisely. Terra does not ask for your trust, nor your friendship. Only this. Treat us as you would wish to be treated. If you come in peace, you will find peace. If you come in war," he paused, letting the silence breathe, "then the galaxy will remember the grave once more." The last word lingered, pressing down on the chamber like a shadow. No one spoke after him. No one dared. Slowly, the human delegate turned and walked toward the great doors at the far end of the hall. Each step echoed across the chamber, steady and unhurried, like the heartbeat of something unstoppable. The rulers of empires that had survived for thousands of years sat frozen, their eyes following him, but their voices trapped in their throats. The doors opened with a deep, grinding sound, spilling cold light into the chamber. The human stepped through and was gone, leaving only silence behind. That silence was different from before. It was not the silence of order, nor the silence of waiting. It was the silence of fear, the silence of rulers who had seen the shadow of their own end. The silver-skinned speaker lifted his head, his voice hollow. "This council is adjourned." No one replied. The archive's light faded, sinking back into the floor. The chamber grew darker, as if the stars above had dimmed in shame. The rulers of the galaxy remained seated, unable to move, each one lost in the same thought. The galaxy had changed forever. For centuries, they had believed themselves untouchable. They had believed the Council was the highest power, the final word in all matters. But tonight they had been reminded of a truth older than any empire, a truth whispered in records and carved into the ruins of fallen dominions. A truth carried in a single name, Terra, the endless grave. The galaxy would never forget it again.